So we are here for episode 105, everybody. Wayne and I were going to talk one of the, I don't know if it's underappreciated, but I think it's a pretty good movie franchise that doesn't get a lot of love.
Dylan, you son of a bitch.
Yes. I was going to start it off with Wayne, you son of a bitch. It's Predator, everybody. If you know the Predator franchise, it's an interesting franchise, I think, Wayne, from the first movie through quality of the other films, and it's an interesting franchise. It's one of the watching this. I watched all 7 movies, counting Prey, this week. There's 7 movies in this franchise. I watched all 7 this week, and the one positive in every movie is a very diverse cast. Including the first movie, you have Arnold, and then you have the character Billy, who's a Native American actor. You have Chavez, who's a Hispanic actor. You have 2 black actors, Bill Duke and Carl Weathers, in the first movie. And with the exception of the Native American guy being a tracker, there is no stereotypes of any of those characters in that film. They're just characters. And that's 1987. We didn't see that a lot back then, where you had such a big, diverse cast of characters. Granted, they all get picked off one by one by a predator. But yes, so that's, I think, the overarching thing, a positive thing for the whole franchise, I think, is that that they've definitely been able to cast whoever they wanted and make those people the stars. We're going to start with Predator, 1987. This movie, back in the day, I guess we were so young, Wayne, I guess the first trailer did not let on that this was a horror film. Everyone thought it was an Arnold Schwarzenegger action film. So the fact that people got to see this in the theater, not realizing that it was like an alien attack film, which they do set up in the beginning of the film because you see the big alien ship, but it's still going into it, not knowing what it was about, I think would have been a really cool feeling, because it definitely is. It is an Arnold film, and it's not an Arnold film at the same time. They make sure they give him enough one-liners to carry the movie, which are fun. But the movie itself is very well done, a very good slice of action from the 80s. Let's start with directed by and created by and all that stuff. Let's see. This is the franchise. So let me open up Predator real quick here. So 1987, directed by John McTiernan, the guy that did Die Hard, and written by Jim Thomas and John Thomas. They're the creators of the Predator franchise, essentially. Produced by Lawrence Gordon, Joel Silver, John Davis, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers. Those are the 2 main cast members, the 2 well-known people at the time. Elpidia Carrillo, Bill Duke, Richard Chavez, Jesse the Body Ventura, Shane Black, who ended up being the writer and director of the 6th outing. R.G. Armstrong, Kevin Peter Hall as the Predator, and the helicopter pilot, Peter Cullen.
As the voice.
The voice, yeah, Peter Cullen is the Predator voice.
For those of you that don't know, he is Optimus Prime.
Yep. Yeah, he does the Predator sounds are something special, I think, that you kind of is one of those things that when you hear it, you're like, okay, I'm watching a fucking Predator film. So the first movie is this special military op where these special forces guys led by Arnold Schwarzenegger are sent out by an old buddy, Carl Weathers, who now works for the CIA. Dutch is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Dylan is Carl Weathers. And they, are all buddy and stuff, but then it's quickly, they find out that they're not being told everything. An entire team that was sent in was killed. They find their bodies hung up and their skin ripped off. So Dutch's team starts to realize that something's off here. And then there's something that they can't see in the woods that starts picking them off one by one. And so we start to kind of get a glimpse of this character, the Predator, as he, quickly takes care of most of the bad guy, or not bad guys, but most of the team, with the exception, obviously, of Dutch. Billy makes it for the most part. Chavez makes it closer to the end. But basically, two are left standing at the end of this. It's spoilers if you haven't seen the Predator, or sorry, this is just called Predator because there is a film called The Predator, which we'll get to. Um, and just rewatching this film, Wayne, just such a badass movie. Great one-liners. I'll get to comparisons when we get to the Predator, but I feel like this movie, there are elements of this movie that wanted to be a comedy action film, but they did pull it back to make it a bit more serious. Because you have Hawkins played by Shane Black, who injects jokes and stuff and one-liners throughout, usually inappropriate ones and bad ones, and then you have the very cheesy music that goes through this movie, which I think was not totally on purpose. I'm not saying the music's bad or anything, and it's totally what they were going for. And then, if everyone remembers the end credits scene, where every character, with the exception of Arnold Schwarzenegger, looks into the camera and smiles as their as their name comes up, like you're watching an opening credits to the movie MASH, or to this TV show MASH. They're like, hey. So it was a very, I think, they were trying to do the balance of action comedy and have it be funny, but they didn't want it to be overly funny. And I think they did the movie right. I think it works out pretty perfectly. I'm just pointing out that what they were trying to do, so that when we get to The Predator later, you guys will understand where I'm coming from when I talk about that movie. This is, yeah, I mean, it's a classic, Wayne. What are your thoughts on the first Predator film?
One of my favorite Arnold 80s movies. I mean, come on. I mean, you got Arnold, you got Carl Weathers,
Yeah.
Apollo Creed, Creed, and a ton of baby oil.
Yes, a ton of baby oil. You have some great one-liners. The one, of course, from Jesse the Body Ventura, I ain't got time to bleed. And there's so many good moments. The Billy laugh scene where he finally, like, Hawkins has been telling him jokes the whole movie that he just kind of stares at him, and then finally he gets him with one, and it's just and that comes into play later in the movie, as the Predator can mimic voices. I think cool too, Wayne, the Predator being such a, like, kind of a badass villain, I think. So what are your thoughts on the Predator as a villain?
Terrifying, utterly terrifying. I think, as we'll talk about the mashup of we're going to talk about Alien and Predator at some point, I'm sure, during his, but like, everyone's like, oh my God, Alien. No, I'm like, yeah, fuck that. I'll take a whole team of those things against one Predator. No, sir. Just, I mean, when you think about the ultimate killing machine, or not even just the ultimate hunter.
The ultimate hunter, yeah.
Just,
well, I think with what the difference, and again, like you said, we'll get into it with Aliens versus Predator. I think the difference is too with, like, the aliens are more animalistic,
right?
And they more it's more just out of an urge that they have, where the Predator is very calculated, and they're doing it for fun. This is a hunt,
fun and sport. Like, okay,
exactly. This is like, hey, we're going to go to these planets and we're just going to start picking people off. And if one of my favorite things later in the franchise is you get, like, when the Predator is bested, they just, like, come and, like, pick up their shit and leave. They're like, yeah, we're going to go.
What are you talking about? They actually give prizes, which ties into the new movie.
Ties into one of our reviews this week, which having watched all the movies this week, I'm glad I did, because I probably wouldn't have remembered that was part of the franchise.
The only reason I remember is because it stuck out as so awkward back in the day. I'm like, huh, okay.
What is this? Yeah, it was interesting. So, yeah, I mean, if, like, Predator is just an incredible film. One of the best action films of the 80s. I've been reviewing these all week on the interwebs. So definitely check it out. All of them except for The Predator are on Hulu. So if you have Hulu right now, you could go watch them all, including the new one. You would just have to find The Predator, which is probably on FX, because I think that one's still somewhat new. So it's in its normal, like, it's now on TV and stuff. So it has to go through that process before it's available to stream.
Yes.
Yeah. So, all right, Predator 2, Wayne. So we have the success of Predator, and I think Predator 2 gets a bad rap, especially when it first came out. I think people were disappointed. One, there's no Arnold, and I think Arnold. To me, what's interesting about this franchise is like we talked how each movie's so diverse, but they're also different because Arnold would not come back for the second one, so they kind of had to change course, and so every movie is basically its own thing. And
Yeah,
there's just like it's almost like a TV series, like an anthology series of like, whoa, what are the predators up to now? And it's like, here we go.
I like it because it's like, all right, next round of hunt. But I
Yes,
mean, we lose Arnold, but we get Gary Busey and Bill Paxton.
Bill
So
Paxton, Danny Glover is the star of the film. Bill Paxton, great with his one-liners. He's the new Hawkins in the second one, delivering these weird jokes and stuff.
nice
Uh,
night for a walk.
yeah,
That being the epic one-liner from his role in Terminator.
yes, yes, yes,
Cameo,
yes.
sorry.
No, it's okay.
I mean, I know you get the joke, but just making sure for Richard.
Explain it. Yes. So Predator 2 starts off. They're in LA. It's 10 years later. It's the future because this movie came out in 1990, so it's 1997, and crime has basically gone cray cray. Cops are fighting gangsters on the street. The gangsters are fighting each other on the street. People are dying. They're fighting over drugs, and people are being hacked into pieces. And then there's this big bust in the beginning of the movie where when they finally get into the building, they find a number of the perpetrators, the bad guys, hung upside down and murdered. And so they're trying to, this opens this new mystery. Well, then that brings Gary Busey's character in, who is a shadow government employee, and basically tells Danny Glover to stay the fuck out of his business. You know nothing about this, and this is our jurisdiction. We're going to take this over. Um, Adam Baldwin also plays one of those shady characters. It's nice to see him too. He was big in the 80s and 90s, and into the 2000s too from some things. But what I like about this movie is it even though the first one is set on Earth, this one makes it a little bit more like real because it puts it into an inner city. You're in this place where the Predator basically has its pick of who to choose. And we should point out too, the one thing that has been current through all the Predator films, and it started in the first one, is if you're unarmed and you're not perceived to be a threat, the Predator is not going to hunt you. It's going to leave you alone. So it's not just going through LA picking off like kids and women and unarmed men. And it's, if it feels threatened, then it's going to attack you. And
Yes,
that's kind of their purpose. And that's one thing that stayed static throughout the franchise, and I like that aspect of it, that they were at least able to kind of like stick to their own rules, because a lot of times when you have this many movies, look at the Terminator franchise, you're going to be picking out things in that franchise like, wait, they said you couldn't do this, but you could do that now, and then they did this, and then they went and erased everything. Predator has at least stayed consistent. They've never tried to like reboot the franchise. It's just always been like, let's try a new sequel and see if people get interested in that. And I think that's an interesting way to go. That 20th Century Fox has kind of tried to let it stand on its own. Predator 2, not very well received. Critics did not care for it. Fans, I think at the time, were upset by it. I think it's gained more of an audience now, Wayne, because people realize it's really not that bad. It's actually pretty entertaining. It's just different. And so what are your thoughts on Predator 2?
I mean, it's impossible to live up to. I shouldn't say impossible, but it's really hard to live up to something as awesome as the original.
Yeah.
But I like the aspects of the city, and you're changing it up like you spoke about earlier. It's so different. It's like a different, obviously a different time period. This is the next hunt. The predators have gotten better. What the fuck are you gonna do? Type thing. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's good too. I think you're pointing out too, the tech is always different and better for the Predators in the new films, and I think that's something that's really cool that they keep adapting. So I like that aspect of this film. Sure, it's not great. Some of the dialogue's pretty clunky, but overall, I like this movie. I think it's a good follow-up to the original years later. Like I said, I get people being upset that Arnold wasn't in the original. But like the fact that they screwed that the producers of Predator screwed up a way of keeping him around, whether it was he wasn't paid enough or that he didn't like the script or let him work on the script with somebody, they fucked up, I think. Even though I do like the franchise overall, I think if they could have found a way to keep Dutch showing up, even if it was in a small role, or if he was Busey's role or another part of Busey's group in this one, something like that, I think that would have been entertaining.
A good callback to, oh, hey, nostalgia, or
right.
I guess nostalgia is the word. I mean, or just
no, for sure. Yeah, even at that point, yeah, just a call back to the original, like, hey, remember this guy? But I do, like I said, I do like the second one. I like where it went. There's really only one of these movies that I like hate with a passion, and I did post about it online. So we'll get into that in two movies here. Um, any final thoughts on Predator 2, Wayne? I know. Have you watched it recently?
I have not. I need. I honestly watching Prey made me want to stop and just start binging.
Yep. Well, like I said, they're all on Hulu with the exception of the newest one. So I definitely recommend people go to Hulu, check them out. I don't know if they've put them on Disney Plus yet. You can activate Disney Plus to make it like TVMA, so you get all the content that they have.
Nice.
I know Prey's on there. I don't know that if the other ones are on there yet. So they took some time off. So we had 87, we had 1990, and then the next entry into the franchise is not till 2004 when we get Alien versus Predator. AVP, Alien versus Predator. This is my wife really likes this movie a lot. We watch it often. So like I watched it this week, but I've seen it a bunch of times already. This one is another one I think it's gained its audience over time. At the time of release, it wasn't really well received, but it did make money. It's one of the few I think that actually made a decent amount of money, which is why we ended up with the next one that we'll talk about after this. So, Alien vs. Predator from the Resident Evil director Paul W.S. Anderson, not to be confused with Paul Thomas Anderson. He wrote the story and the screenplay with Shane Salerno. It's our first one to star a female protagonist, and that is Sanaa Lathan as Alexa Lex Woods. We get Raul Bova, Lance Henriksen, Ewan Bremner, Colin Salmon, Tommy Flanagan from Sons of Anarchy. Chibs, Karsten Norgard. Let's see. That's about it for the recognizable names. So this one involves a expedition into a mountain that's supposed to be like treasure and shit, or like just cool shit that's supposed to be in this mountain. And Lex leads the team that's funded by Wayland, which is tie into Aliens, which is Lance Henriksen's character. And he wants to just discover things inside this mountain. Well, they end up unearthing aliens. And so, like the movie Alien and Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection. And so they end up getting attacked. Well, to stop the attack, there are like in this one, the predators almost seem to act as like a protecting service. Like, you know, they're like, oh shit, yeah, I don't remember if it was them that put the aliens there. We're like, wow, we gotta go clean Earth up from the aliens, so let's go do that. So they set out to do that. So then you end up having like a predator who goes around and is killing some of the people because they see a predator, they start shooting at it, the predator feels threatened and he murders them. So that's how this works. It is also the time that Lance Henriksen is killed by a predator, because him and Bill Paxton have been killed by a Terminator, a predator, and an alien. And there's some argument between here of that, but we'll just say that that's what people, you know, that's the distinction that those two hold. It's a fun movie. I think if it was rated R, it would have been gorier. However, I do think for being PG-13, Wayne, this movie's pretty violent. There's a lot of like alien killing where they like rip the alien apart and stuff, and you see all the green blood and stuff like that. Yeah. So I think they got as violent as they could. So what are your recollection of Alien versus Predator?
It was always my complaint that how are you going to make an Alien versus Predator movie and not make it rated R?
Yep.
I know they could get through because the blood was green and not red, so the critics were the rating system was a little bit like, oh well, people know it's not blah blah blah. It's like, come on.
And it's the only one to be PG-13 too.
Right.
So that I thought that was an interesting, like they chose it, and it probably box office wise, it probably did the best, at least out of the more current ones.
Right. And I mean, I don't want to say I was disappointed with it. It's just when you got the two franchises coming together, it's kind of like Freddy and Jason.
Yeah.
You know, as excited as you are, you're just kind of like, And I think we talked before, Freddy and Jason's more of a comedy.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Right. Yeah. Well, and I think with this one, I'll agree. It doesn't live up to the hype, but I think if you separate the hype from the film, it's still an actually very entertaining movie. And I do enjoy it. I get it's one of those ones that my wife has put on so much that I probably could never watch it again, and I'll remember every fucking minute of it. um, but it's one of those things that it's just I can't ignore the fact that it is an enjoyable hour and 40 some minute film. Like it's a fun movie, and I really um, just was entertained by it. So I think if for that alone, it's worth watching if you haven't seen it, if you've avoided it, and to have Sanaa Lathan being a tough um, uh, main character who's the hero of the film, I think is really badass, especially even for 2004. You thought we would have been further on in that time, but we weren't. So I think I think that's important too, is that she's kind of a badass in the movie, and it really helps. And there is the scene where her and the Predator like agree to like help each other, which I think is kind of a badass moment. They just kind of, because they can't communicate, they just kind of like nod at each other, and it's just like, all right, let's go fucking kick some alien ass. So I think the last like 30 minutes of this movie are pretty badass. I do enjoy it. I recommend people rewatching it if because I was disappointed when I saw it at first too. The more I've seen it, the more I've come around on it. So I do recommend people checking this one out. And then we get to the next one. Yeah.
And full truth, I didn't even bother to see. I have not seen this one.
Don't waste your fucking time.
No,
unless you want to just complete it like I did. This is the second time I've seen it. The only reason I watch it because I was like, well, I'm going to watch them all. And I own it, and I only own it because I bought it in a 2-pack with Alien vs. Predator on Blu-ray. It was like $10. I was like, well, I'm not gonna not buy it. So in this way, I'm a completist. I have all of them.
Yeah.
It has some good ideas. Like I posted online this week. There are some. I like the Predator Alien, which is the Predator Alien. Very cool idea. It's rated R, so there is more gore, more violence. The characters are kind of dumb. It's a lot of TV actors, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's just you're just kind of like, eh.
I noticed from the IMDb page that the stupid guy from Rescue Me is like one of the main. It's like
the main girl, or one of the girls from 24, like the first couple seasons of 24, and then you had the Asian woman, Rico Aylesworth, I think is how you say her name.
Right. And I was going to say, was that Half Sack?
Half Sack is the other third main character. Yep. Which is crazy now because he went into a drug psychosis 5 years after this movie and murdered his landlord and killed himself. So very kind of a weird story. But when he popped up, I was like, wait a minute, is that Half Sack? Is like, wait, I'm like, when was this made? And I looked it up, like, oh shit, this was like right at the time that he was on Sons. So yeah, it was interesting seeing him in it. John Ortiz is a character actor I really like from Silver Linings Playbook and a bunch of other stuff. So it was fun to see him in it as well. Well, I said it has some cool ideas. It's terrible. It first off, it's shot completely like at night, and they didn't like bother making sure that people would actually be able to tell what the fuck was happening. So you can't see most of the movie. Even when I put it on, and we hadn't seen this movie since, maybe Rebecca might have watched it recently because I think recently she went through a whole rewatch of like the Alien franchise. So she had put these two on, but I popped it on. She goes, "This is the one you can't see." I was like, yes, it is. And I remember like telling Neil that at work, and he's like, oh my God. He's like, I couldn't tell what the hell was going on. I'm like, yeah, you can't see anything.
That's why it's so terrifying. Ooh.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Did they explain where the Pralien comes from?
So this is the one tie-in. At the end of the first Alien versus Predator,
you put a little Marvin Gaye, like, let's get it on.
Yeah, an alien killed one of the Predators, so it infected one of them.
Gotcha.
So at before you get the credits in Alien versus Predator, an alien pops out of a Predator on the Predator ship. Mm-hmm. So in this one, all that like crash lands, and then you get the alien Predator from that. So then they show you the same scene, which I thought was hilarious, Wayne, because the fucking scene from Alien versus Predator was not very dark. The scene in Aliens versus Predator Requiem was much darker. It's the same fucking scene of the alien popping out of the chest, but they fucking turned the contrast down just to match their shitty movie. So it was like, I'm like, come on, guys, really?
So what you're saying is they just took an adjustment layer of black and put a little bit of transparency on there because nobody bothered to actually color correct the fucking thing.
Exactly. So
this is business talk here, folks. Yes.
it's just not, and I know people that like this movie better than the first one, and I get if you're like, oh, because it's more violent. Okay, fine, it is more
People
violent.
are entitled to their
Yes,
incorrect opinion.
yes, exactly. It's more violent when you can actually see the violence. It's just it's just not very good. There's no reason us spending a lot of time on this one. Wayne, like he said, he hasn't even watched it, so it's not worth seeing unless you're a completist and you want to watch them all. It's just not very good, and I wish I was hoping I was gonna like it better. Like I said, I picked out a few things where I was like, oh, that would have been cool. Oh, the Predator Alien would have been cool, but none of it really adds up to anything. All right, so then we got the next two, which I actually consider myself a fan of both of these films. We'll start with the Robert Rodriguez produced and Nimrod Antel directed Predators. Came out in 2010. Big cast, another one kind of like the first movie. Big cast: Adrian Brody, Topher Grace, Alice Braga, Walton Goggins, Oleg Taktarov. Look him up; you'll recognize him. Lawrence Fishburne, Danny Trejo. Mahershala Ali, an early role of his. I didn't even remember him being in it. One of the Predators is played by Derek Mears, who played Jason Voorhees. So yeah, this one is kind of like there's a game called Predator Hunting Grounds that just came out. And I haven't played it yet, but like that is basically I would imagine what this is, because Predators takes place on another planet, and they basically airdrop all these victims that are soldiers or whatnot, people that they could want to hunt, onto the planet, and they just start hunting them. It's a big like game jungle, and they're the big game. And Adrian Brody's the star. He's the special forces. He's okay. He does try to do like the action guy voice throughout most of the movie, which is kind of annoying. I think performance wise and character wise, the best character is Alice Braga's character.
Yeah.
She's a lot more. There's a lot more layers to her. Where Adrian Brody, like I said, there may be more layers, but it's we got to go this way, guys. Like, come
I
on.
have a hard time buying Adrian Brody as an action star.
Hey, you know what? I think like the moves and stuff he did, I thought he looked the part. It was just the whole like I'm gonna do the Jack Bauer 24 voice for all hour and 46 minutes of this movie that kind of bothered me. Because he's he's a great actor. I mean, he won an Oscar for The Pianist. Everybody knows that he can do it. It was just one of those things. It was kind of a weird casting choice, just based on the performance that he gave. If he was like more his normal self, I would maybe even like it more. But that being said, I still enjoyed this movie. I liked the idea of the Predators going through and hunting all these people.
I like the different classes, if you will. Like, you know, there's like the main, you get your classic, and then there's like a hunter, if you will, and then there's like a one that just like goes ape shit.
Yep. Oh yeah. Well, that's just it too. This is the first movie where you realize that predators also fight predators, like humans fight other humans. There is a class of predators, and they definitely go through that in the next movie as well. And this is the first time we kind of get that. Like, there's a kind of a good predator, which is the predator that we've known from the Alien vs. Predator films in the first two Predator movies. And then there's a more advanced predator who's like the head honcho in this film, and is basically doing the hunt. So it's interesting because you have Walton Goggins, who we've talked about many times in this podcast. We love him. Goggins. He plays very much like his character Boyd from Justified. Very racist. He's a very pro rape. So there's a scene where he's like talking about all the girls he's going to rape when he gets back to Earth.
Well, he's like Danny Trejo in Con Air.
Basically, and Danny Trejo's in this movie, interesting enough. So there's a scene where like Topher Grace goes and sits down next to the Russian guy, and the Russian guy goes, "Yeah, don't sit near him anymore." probably best not to talk to him. So there's lots of humor in this movie, lots of good one-liners, which I think is important, something that they've tried to keep through the original film.
That's the other issue I have. I keep waiting for Red Foreman to pop up and go, "Dumbass!" anytime.
Well, and that's what's interesting is Topher, he's like Eric Foreman, and then by the end of the movie, he's like Venom. So the twist on this one is, and it's going to spoil a thing, the twist is that because everyone is picked because they're like a soldier and they can kill people, or like in Goggins' characters from prison, so he's a murderer, a rapist. They pick these people that they could fight. Everyone's curious on why they picked Topher Grace because he can't do any of that. However, there's the twist is when you come later in the film is that Topher Grace is actually a serial killer. And the predators were stalking him, so they knew that, but nobody else knew that because he hid that very well from them.
Yes.
You do get Lawrence Fishburne, who I believe. So every time they've done a Predator movie, they've written a part for Arnold. I think Lawrence Fishburne was supposed to be Arnold Schwarzenegger or one of the other actors from one of the other Predator films. To be like, okay, like this guy's been living in this shit for a while because he plays a character who's been on this planet and basically is only looking out for numero uno and helping the predators catch the other humans. And then when he gets blown up, it's pretty fucking cool because lots of bloody violence in this one. The one negative I would say, I wish Robert Rodriguez, when I heard he was making this movie, I assumed he was directing it, and he did not. And I wish he would have directed it. I think it would have been cooler if he had. But I still enjoy this movie. I enjoy the cast of characters. I like watching them all get murdered. It's
I like them getting murdered.
I think it's a fun movie. If anything, watch her for Alice Braga because she's a badass in it. Wayne, what are your recollection of Predators?
It's one I need to see again. I saw it once in theaters, and yeah, it was enjoyable enough, but it's one I really need to revisit. Like I said, like some of the more typecasted characters is like, come on, where's Red? I'll put my foot in your ass type thing. Yeah. I love Danny Trejo, and everything. So, and again, Adrian Brody, I was like, play a piano, get out of my scene.
Go in one of your important films. Leave the predating to Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I mean, again, yeah, that's just me, focusing on what he's memorable in or most recognizable for and being distracted. It's on me. It's not anything that he did wrong other than I'm Batman.
Basically what he's doing. I only work alone. Okay.
Martha.
Mother! That would have been amazing if that happened in the movie. Martha! All right.
And then a lady predator walks out with a Martha name tag.
Why'd you say that name? But in Predator talk.
We could make a satire, not another Predator movie.
Yes, we could.
Anyway.
All right. So the next one to me is like the redheaded stepchild of the 4 regular Predator films, not counting Alien and Aliens versus Predator Requiem. But I really like this movie a lot, Wayne. It's directed by Shane Black, written by his co-writer Fred Decker, who wrote Monster Squad with him. It stars Boyd Holbrook, Trevante Rhodes, Jacob Tremblay, Keegan-Michael Key, Olivia Munn, Thomas Jane, Alfie Allen, and Sterling K. Brown. So great cast right off the bat. You also got Yvonne Stravinsky, who plays the ex-wife of Boyd Holbrook and the mother of Jacob Tremblay's character.
Now, Jake Busey plays a character named Keys.
Yes.
Is that the son of his father?
Yes. They don't really say in the movie, but Shane Black said before the film that he was the son of Gary Busey's character from Predator 2. So there's that connection. They talk about 87 and 90, so they don't bring up the Predators, but that makes sense actually because Predators takes place on another planet. So really people wouldn't really know what happened in that planet.
Let me ask you this before we get started. How do you like the Predator in this one? The look of it. I was like kind of I don't know. There's a little bit too much of him and not enough like of the cloaking, in my opinion. But
yeah, they did a lot. Well, because they created the giant Predator, which was like I don't even know where just like evolution. I guess there's going to be a giant Predator. And you
I thought that was the Berserker one type thing. You know what I mean?
Basically, so. I liked because the regular Predator, the one that's trying to help them, is just a regular Predator like the other movies, and he's the one that crash lands on Earth, and his tech gets out, and so they're trying to basically that Predator. So the plot is that Predator was trying to tell them like the Predator planets or they're going to come and they're going to erase you guys. So I'm giving you weapons to help you fight against extinction, basically.
Right.
Because basically what they talk about is that when the Predators realize that the planet is basically donezo, and we're killing ourselves on this planet, they go, oh, okay, well, it's time for us to inhabit that planet and destroy everybody on it. And so that's the premise of this movie. So Boyd Holbrook and his group of crazies, which, you know, it definitely, you could argue that it doesn't handle mental health very well, but it's more played up for the buddy kind of action film. Thomas Jane and Keegan Michael Key have a really great relationship, kind of like buddy duo, comedy duo, which I really enjoyed. It's a funny movie, and that's what I think put a lot of people off, because they really lean into the humor on this one. It does have some great lines, two lines that I remember for I just watched it, but I wanted to repeat. One is Thomas Jane. They're Trevante Rhodes is having the ex-wife explain what kind of soldier Boyd Holbrook is. And she's like, he's got 13 confirmed kills, and, you know, he's the first one in the door, and blah blah blah. They're trying to get them to like follow him out into the street to find the predator, and she tells her story, and it cuts to Thomas Jane and goes, well, you know, it sounds like he can handle himself. So it's just like this whole like big like built up story, and they're like, he can take care of it. And then they eventually all end up going and stuff. But it was just a funny thing. And then there's Jacob Tremblay has a great line where Sterling K. Brown tries to do like reverse psychology on him, and Tremblay goes, "Oh, that's reverse psychology. I know that. I know how that works. Just like I'm going to say right now, don't go fuck yourself." It was like, I was like, oh my god. It was like just a great line. It was really funny. I found myself laughing, I think, more this time than I even did the first time. It's been a while. I watched it 4 years ago and haven't seen it. I think I watched a little bit of it here and there, but it's the first time I sat down and watched it again.
Nice.
Again, the lead actor, it was supposed to be Benicio del Toro, who obviously, you know, we both really like, and it would have been a different movie, I think, had he been in it. Boyd Holbrook's fine. He's good. It's just, I think I would have preferred someone like Benicio. Again, Arnold did not return. You know, they had asked him and he would not do it. I like this movie. A lot of people hate this movie with a passion. I really enjoy it. It is kind of dumb. I saw someone I follow on Twitter, and he's like, you know, I think like Predator. He's like Predator 2, Predators, and Predator and the Predator. He's like, they're all pretty dumb, but they're all very entertaining. And I agree. And I think that this one is just, it's a very fun, entertaining buddy action film that I think just gets dismissed because it's not 1987's The Predator Predator. I enjoy this one. Wayne, have you seen this one, or have you seen it recently?
I have not seen this one at all, unfortunately. So, but I will comment on the fact that people get so hung up on what they're used to, like, you know, just you can link it back to the Star Wars people. It's like, I only recognize the first three. It's like, okay, here we go. Even though the last three Star Wars movies were bad.
Yes. But you still recognize them. You just recognize them as
I acknowledge that they exist, and I'm happy that people enjoy them.
Yes. The other thing too, I wanted to mention, I like I said, I think if you watch Predator and then watch The Predator, you could see where in Predator they wanted a movie to be like The Predator. They wanted it to be a buddy action flick and to have comedy to it, but they didn't want to go too far. Where when Shane Black did, since he was on the set of that movie, I think he got that vibe. So then he was like, all right, we're going to do a total buddy action, Lethal Weapon style comedy with this movie. And that's what they did. And I like it for that. I think it's very fun. There's lots of blood and guts and stuff. There's lots of cool death scenes. And Trevante Rhodes has a really cool death scene. It's just I think it's a really fun movie. So I think people should watch it. I recommend it to you, Wayne, since you haven't seen it, to check it out and just see it. I think you'll be entertained by it. And it does push the mythos out a little bit, tries to give you a little bit more on what the whole thing is about. All right. So we're done with those of the Predator films. We're going to go on to our reviews
of the week.
All right,
I wanted to make a Predator sound effect, but you know.
All right, take over. Tell us about the first movie, Prey.
All right. Brand spanking new. You can watch on Hulu and Disney Plus, maybe?
Yes, correct.
I watched on Hulu, so...
Same.
The origin story of the Predator in the world of the Comanche Nation 300 years ago. Naru, a skilled female warrior, fights to protect her tribe against one of the first highly evolved predators to land on Earth. Or at least that we know of so far. All right. This cast is as follows. Amber Midthunder as Naru. Dakota Beavers as Tabi. Dane Ligero as the Predator, Stormy Kip as Wasapi, Michelle Thirst as Akaru, and the Chief Kahutu as Julian Black Antelope. There are a bunch of other folks that I'm not really sure are important to know, but they did a fantastic job all the same. So, off the bat, beautifully shot, beautiful landscape. The cinematography is fantastic.
Yes.
You know, I didn't read a whole bunch into this one, just because I wanted to just kind of experience it without having the whole 87, 90, and all the other iterations of Predator movies. I just kind of wanted to experience it. I'm glad I did, because very, very cool. Because, we're talking about, the 1700s, colonial times?
1719 to be exact.
1719, okay.
It's a direct tie-in to Predator 2.
Yes.
End of Predator 2, the Predator gives Danny Glover a gun, a musket, from 1719. So I didn't know going in that was going to be the tie-in, but I was wondering when I started watching, I wonder if this takes place, because I heard it was the 1700s. Yeah. It better take place in 1719 then. Yeah. And then, of course, it does, and that gun actually comes into play later.
I totally did the Leonardo DiCaprio, the little point and whistle.
Yeah. I know you.
Of course, it didn't connect until they pushed the dirt aside, and then you saw the name engraved. I was like, aha!
Yes, very cool. Very cool callback.
Gave this extra points, but it was fun watching. How the Native American the Comanche, excuse me,
Comanche.
How they operate, and I was warning: if they kill the dog, I'm turning this fucker off. Which is a great tie into what we're watching next, or we're going to review next.
Yes.
So keep that in mind. So the dog, fantastic, obviously. The big hero, if you will.
Yes.
Watch the movie if you don't understand what I'm talking about.
We won't spoil it, but the dog, you can find, if you go look like Prey dog, there's a bunch of people online talking about how much they love that fucking dog, and how that dog is one of the best dogs they've ever seen. I saw someone call it the Streep of dogs.
Well, yeah, it's very interesting because, the Predator's still got most of his technologically advanced weapons. I mean, there is a little bit of primalness to the weapons.
Yeah, there are definitely some more. There's more arrows and stuff that he uses, which is more probably with the times, which I thought was really cool. But they're obviously electronic arrows that blow you up and shit. But they're arrows still. Thought that was a nice touch, I thought.
Absolutely. I loved what they did with the blood.
Yep.
And how symbolic it was to the Comanche and both, human and Predator.
Yep.
Spoiler, maybe.
Yep.
I'm trying to be vague because I want everybody to go watch this, because this is up there with, 1 and 2 for me.
I think this is probably one of the best movies we may have reviewed this year so far.
Yeah,
just entertaining. Action wise, it's such a kick-ass movie. To watch Amber Midthunder just kick ass throughout this entire film was awesome,
and compete with the men in her tribe, because obviously gender roles and what they are and what they are. They actually talk about it at the beginning of the movie. Well, why are you here on this hunt?
Yep.
And the one's like, she's a good tracker. She should stay.
They sound like a bunch of incels, like the ones you hear on the internet complaining that this movie's too woke because it has a female character as the lead actress.
Of course. You get these soft ass white males that we'll just leave it at that. So
yeah, exactly. But this movie,
podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. We can go on and on for that. So this movie is, it's really entertaining. Wayne kind of hit everything here. Amber Midthunder is the star of this film, as well as the dog. And they both are just really great together. I hope she gets way more work out of this. The action sequences are cool. If you ever wondered what it'd be like to watch a Predator fight against bow and arrows, this gives you that. And it's just a really kind of kick-ass thing. The hatchet that she ties to the rope, that was really cool. There's so many just really cool moments in this film, and she's such a badass. We did see her in Ice Road, the Liam Neeson film. I think that was last year. So this is the second time we're reviewing a movie with her, but she is definitely a star, and I hope that this really puts her on a path to being bigger and better movies. Not that this isn't bigger or better. This is, there was a lot of talk about this one, why it wasn't in theaters. Well, the Predator franchise has notoriously not made a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So when they sold this one, they actually sold it. Disney was like, well, this could be one of our first big streaming movies, and that's what they used it as. And I think, yes, it probably would have been badass to see in the theater, but it's great to have a movie like this delivered to home.
Yes.
Just something to watch at home, and it's such a badass film that everybody should watch this movie. Unless you're like 5, but everyone older than 5 should watch this movie because it's such a badass film, and it's just so great to see her kick ass against this. This
If
Predator.
they decided to release this into theaters just on a whim, I would definitely go and see it just for that experience.
For sure, yeah, I think it would be a great experience. A little background too. I guess it was so when they were in production on the Predator in 2018. John Davis was the producer was approached by director Dan Trachtenberg and the writer Patrick Elson about this idea. So this had been in the works for about 4 years until they announced it last year that it was officially going to happen. It's supposed. I think it's supposed to be the first time they landed on Earth. Now they could always alter that. There are definitely going to be ideas for a sequel, so it'll be interesting to see where they go from there.
The Flintock pistol is a good tie-in because how do the Predators get it back?
Mm-hmm.
And if they can deliver a sequel to this,
yep,
on par. Oh yeah, dude, I'm signing up. Let's go right now.
I'm ready. No, it was definitely
Pirates.
Yeah.
Yarr!
And I think that would be a logical step. I think pirates or cowboys or whatever. You can make a western. You make
cowboys and pirates. It's right in itself. Here we
go. I hope Trachtenberg he's only done 2 movies, and they're both prequels to franchises. He did 10 Cloverfield Lane, which was, in my opinion, way better than Cloverfield. And then he did this one, which is, I'm not going to say better than Predator, but it's better than the rest of the Predator films. To me, this is probably the second best movie. It's just really well made, and I just want people to watch this film. I think it's that good. Everyone needs to check it out. I think they'll like it. So my final rating for this, Wayne, would be, I'd say like a 8 to 8.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. Probably go up higher on repeat viewings, but it's a lot of fun. What are your final thoughts on Prey?
I'm right there with you. 8.5 sounds good to me.
All right. So moving on to the next film. I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed by this next film. We were reviewing They/Them, which is a 2022 horror film slasher directed by John Logan, written by John Logan. He's an Oscar-nominated film screenwriter. This is his first directed movie. It stars Theo Germain, Carrie Preston, Anna Schlumsky, Austin.
My girl.
That's Anna, yes, from My Girl. And of course, Kevin Bacon. There's a lot of other people too, but I'm not going to go through all the names here. So it's a film about a what do they call it? We're drawing a blank on about the
conversion camp.
Yes, a conversion, like a Christian conversion camp. But they make it a point earlier in the movie that it's not a Christian conversion camp; it's just a conversion camp, which in itself is kind of strange. They also make it a point, all the kids, they're not kids necessarily. They're all technically adults. They're all like 18 and above, which is brought up like they're in college and stuff several times. And a lot of them are doing it because they were given ultimatums by their parents that if they didn't do this, they couldn't see their sibling, or they couldn't do this, they couldn't do that. Or, one of them you find out later is doing it for like research. And it starts off with a kill, which is weird because it's never explained. Honestly, I mean, I assume once you find out what has happened, you can assume who that person was supposed to be, I guess. But it was just kind of random, like the guy that wrote it was like, because he usually does like pretty prestigious movies, so it's like, oh, he's doing a horror movie. He's like, let's start it off like every other horror movie where someone dies right away. But if there's no point to that, then why did you do it? So right away I was a bit like, okay, that was strange.
Yeah.
And then we're given, Wayne, probably like 45 to like 50 minutes where nobody dies, which I thought was a weird thing to do in like a slasher horror film, that they didn't have more deaths throughout, because you kind of already know what it's going to be, I think. Mm-hmm. So and then like about 40 minutes in, or 40 minutes left, I predicted who was the killer and stuff. So that always lessens the impact as well. Um, there are I think we should talk about too that there are people from the queer community not happy with this movie because it does perpetuate the groomer stereotype and the stereotype that I will say this this is a spoiler, everybody. I'm not going to say who the killer is, but the killer is someone who is queer. So that there's a lot of people that don't like that because then you're perpetuating the Silence of the Lambs, where the queer person is crazy, that kind of thing, and that does not sit well with a lot of people in that community, and I completely understand that. Um, for me, this movie I wanted to like this movie so much because I love Kevin Bacon, and Kevin Bacon is great and everything. I love that they cast trans people, they cast gay people, queer people, all the people that were cast, all the kids, they are who they are in the movie, and I think that's really great and special. And that's something that like they nailed that part of it. The director is a gay man, so that part you get that part down. But he also wrote the screenplay, so it brings into question and like what was he really trying to say and really trying to do. I I think he was trying to, it's just hard for me because like he has the killer be the killer, and then you have the person who's like, no, this is wrong. So it still feeds into like sort of like our Republicans, right? That like there are gay people that want to murder people. Like it's weird to watch this movie and just have those feelings afterwards to be like, I should be like pointing out how great it is to have a movie like this where we have all these, the main actor is a trans actor. Like that's something that's really impressive, but the movie itself, I think, does a lot of disservice to a lot of the people.
Yeah. Well, when we were prepping for this movie before we started, recording, we was like, I kind of made a comment that it felt a little dangerous just to, encourage people to kind of target, those of our LGBTQ
Yeah.
plus lifestyle.
Yes.
And that was like the first thing that came to mind. Like, I don't, so. And then, of course, later on, there is some definite grooming problems with.
Yes. Yes.
As a movie, I liked where it was going. It just kind of needed to pick up the pace after like
Yes.
the 10-minute mark.
Yeah. I do agree. It was a little long. If it was a little shorter, I probably could have overlooked some of my issues with it.
Or we could have done a little more killing, or
A
a
little
little
more
bit
killing.
more.
Yeah, because like it only goes after a certain section of the people. So
Right.
um my thought now, I'm not a writer, I'm not a filmmaker. I would have liked though one of two things. One, if this was more of like a dark drama and it was one of these camps and these kids had to like band together to like just like emotionally get through it. Like when they have that song where that scene where they're singing the Pink song, I'm like watching
Mhm.
that, I'm like, oh, I love this. Like this would be great. And like a drama where all these queer kids come together and they're like, we're not going to let them change us, that type of thing. But
Right.
we're sitting in the middle of a slasher film. And then the other way I could have seen it going for the horror style of it was more to, because it's a slasher, so right away it's not like these evil demon like camp counselors. I would have liked that more if it was like just the camp counselors started like picking off the kids one by one, like that, or you know what I mean? Like if it was more in that vein, I think that
Mhm.
would have been better. It just it missed a lot of marks for me. And I think for a lot of people, there are some moments of where I'm like, oh, this could have been like I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is a very entertaining like B horror slasher film. But because it put so much on its back for the type of movie it was trying to be and an important film it was trying to be, I think a lot of that gets left off. And it really just doesn't. It did not work for me that well. I know
Mhm.
Wayne, you were entertained by it a little more than I was.
Yeah.
I would give it like a 4 out of 10. I really wanted to like this movie. I couldn't really get into it that much. So Wayne, what's your final ranking on it?
I can't go higher than 5 just because, like I said, I'm worried that it sends the wrong message and encourages and empowers the wrong people.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely concern within the queer community. If you follow, I follow a bunch of them on Twitter and Instagram and stuff, and that's a lot of what they talked about. Now, I think there you do have people like just going in on the director and who is also the writer and stuff. Like, I think what's important is that we do talk about what the misses were in this movie and what people can do better in the future, and what we look for in movies like this, because you don't want this to be the movie that's like, oh well, we can't do that because it didn't work, because it has worked in other movies. It just didn't work in this one. And I think we can learn from this movie. I also want to point out too that Jason Blum is kind of like Netflix, where he lets the storytellers do kind of what they want, just on a minimal budget. So he doesn't have like, because I saw someone's like, oh, I can't believe Blumhouse put out this, and they also put out Black Phone, which is a great, incredible movie about trauma, and this one kind of misses the mark on that. And like, I want to point out that, not to defend Jason Blum or anything, but like, he doesn't, like, I don't think he has as much say as someone like at Warner Brothers has over their properties. So I think this is a little bit different of a relationship that he has. He lets them do what they want to do, and then he gets to make the decision if he thinks it's going to make money and dump it on Peacock, which is what he did. So
Do we know what orientation John Logan is?
I read something that he was a gay man. That's
okay.
What I read. I haven't looked it up, so I can't be 100% sure on that. But
the only reason I bring this up is not to like start a conspiracy or anything. It's just you got you need to write about what you know. And if this was like
he is openly gay.
Okay, never mind. We're good. I just worry, like if I would to, I don't know. I'm not trying to open up this hornet's nest, so I apologize.
No, I got you. There is always that concern too, especially I'd bring up comparisons to when the Farrelly brother and that one Italian guy won the Oscar for Green Book for writing a movie about a black historical black character. People look at that. People look at who we're awarding for telling stories that are maybe not their stories to tell, if that's the right, you know what I mean? So it's
definitely really about the white savior as well.
Right, so. Exactly. That's exactly what that movie's about. So
there's another issue there.
Yes. So when you only honor those people, that's where you get these issues. So I think it's important to bring that up. Not that he has to be in order to direct a movie like this, but you could see if he wasn't gay, you could kind of see where some of the other stuff was coming from. But in this case, like I said, he wrote it. So I don't know if he thought people would relate to it more. He just doesn't know how to write horror films. Very big possibility there. Because most of the stuff he wrote were like prestigious dramas and shit. All right, Wayne. So anything that you watched this week, you want to talk about?
Nothing really that stood out. I'm making my way through both Smallville and King of the Hill, but it was a busy week, so I didn't really get to watch too much. Obviously, revisited the first Predator because, why do you need an excuse not to? So,
agreed. All right, so I watched all the Predator films this week, which I talked about. I watched The Cursed. I can't remember if I talked about that one last week, but I'll recommend that one again because Boyd Holbrook, who was in The Predator, is in The Cursed, and The Cursed is a very good horror film from 2022. It is on Hulu right now. I also watched my James Caan movies. I did two. I finished the one from last week, this week, called Thief, which is incredible. Michael Mann film, his first feature film. And then I watched which is now available on Prime. You can watch Thief on Prime. I bought it because you couldn't like a week ago, but now you can. Gardens of Stone is the next one, which I watched on Tubi. Didn't care for that one very much. It's Francis Ford Coppola. It was like what we talked about kind of with They/Them Wayne. It's a movie. Maybe it sat better back in the day. It feels very much written in the time of Reagan, and where it's very much like, don't you say anything bad about the military or James Caan's going to punch you in the face. It's like, so it just, you're on mute again. Sorry.
Yay, capitalism.
Yes, exactly. That's kind of what the whole movie felt like. So I didn't really care for it. If you're interested, it's on Tubi. But that was basically all I really watched this week because I was watching so many Predator films. All right, so let's get to the news and notes, and we'll wrap this baby up for this week. So, news. Jared Leto and Jamie Lee Curtis joined the cast of the new Haunted Mansion film, starring Rosario Dawson and Lakeith Stanfield. Cyndi Lauper joins Horror of Dolores Roach as detective character. That is a show that'll be on Amazon Prime. The First Lady canceled after one season at Showtime. Roadhouse reboot with Jake Gyllenhaal and directed by Doug Liman lands at Amazon Prime Studios.
If it wasn't Jake Gyllenhaal, I'd be really pissed off right now.
I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it. So it's going to be interesting, I think. And this goes to what we talked about with Gyllenhaal recently, that he's now recognized that acting can be fun. So he's taking on more fun roles than he was a couple years ago, where he went more character actor roles. So I'm really interested to see how this turns out. It could be awful, but I'll give it a shot.
Like I said, it's Gyllenhaal, so why not?
Yeah, right, exactly. Hopefully he wears the mullet.
Yeah, if he doesn't have a mullet, we riot.
Selena Gomez is producing Working Girl remake. Ann Dowd joins Exorcist sequel from David Gordon Green. Everything Everywhere All at Once directors Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, known as the Daniels, and their producer Jonathan Wang ink a 5-year deal partnership with Universal. Animated reboot of Everyone Hates Chris called Everyone Still Hates Chris, given straight to series order at Paramount Plus and Comedy Central.
An early review, Will Smith think it slaps.
Oh.
Sorry.
Can't believe you went there.
And also, fuck Will Smith.
Yes. FX orders The Veil from producer Stephen Knight to air exclusively on Hulu. Elizabeth Moss will star. Batgirl has been canceled after poor test screenings and reshoots. Maybe will add up to about 90 million loss if true, or because it wasn't big enough, which is another reason, or they just wrote it off. Who knows? They're not really. They're saying it's because of the bad test screenings. I don't really know what to believe coming out of Warner Brothers right now.
See, that just feels like such a. I don't know, man.
It's so it's weird, especially because it seemed like it was doing so well. And
even if it's bad, you're just gonna scrap the whole thing because bad stuff can still make money.
Yes, exactly.
At least recoup some of your. I don't know.
It was
like a panic move.
Yeah, the whole thing with Warner Brothers is just very strange. That it's been happening over the last week. So we'll see what it all ends out. Scoob 2 was also canceled by them. First Kill canceled at Netflix after one season. Trans actor Hari Nef cast as Candy Muse, a trans icon and muse to Andy Warhol. Warner Brothers has gone crazy, pulling out at least 6 HBO original films off of the streaming service. So that was also something weird they did this last week. She-Hulk release date pushed back one day to August 18th. Gigi Saul Guerrero will direct a biopic, Jenny, a film about Mexican singer Jenny Rivera. Idris Elba starring in comic adaptation film Bang over at Netflix. David Leitch will direct. Comic creator Matt Kint will help write the screenplay. Kint also has another adaptation in the works on Netflix. It's called Mind MGMT, and it will be a series. No cast or showrunners have been set yet. Lady Gaga officially announces that she has officially joined Joaquin Phoenix in Joker 2 as Harley Quinn. Keanu Reeves will officially be starring in Devil in the White City series at Hulu, produced by Scorsese and DiCaprio. He will be playing H.H. Holmes. James Franco playing Fidel Castro for some reason in A Line of Cuba. HBO Max and Discovery Plus officially merging after all the stuff coming out of there this week. That's actually happening. After Bizarre Week from them. Omar Sy to star in John Woo's reimagined The Killer. Jeff Nichols' new film, The Bike Riders, cast Jodie Comer, Tom Hardy, and Austin Butler. New TV series starring Ricky Lindholm and Natasha Leggero in the works at Fox. It's a single camera comedy called Buffalo Tens. Brett and Drew Pearce, directors of horror film The Wretched, will direct Room 428. Next, Scott Derrickson, C. Robert Cargill, and Cheryl Clark, the guys that did all the ones that did The Black Phone, will produce. Rose Byrne and Ty Simpkins rejoin the Insidious franchise for Patrick Wilson's Insidious 5. Sinclair Daniel, Peter Dagger, and Chaim Abbas will play new characters. Rosanna Arquette joins Big Sky Season 3, and Nobody officially getting a sequel. Releases that were just announced. Spirit Halloween the movie hits VOD October 11th. Run, Sweetheart Run hits Prime Video October 28th. My Best Friend's Exorcism debuts September 30th on Prime Video. Good Night Mommy remake starring Naomi Watts hits Prime Video September 16th. Cars on the Road TV series debuts on Disney Plus September 8th. Owen Wilson, Larry the Cable Guy, and Bonnie Hunt will be reprising their roles from the original films. The Curse of Bridge Hollow, kid-friendly horror film starring Marlon Wayans, Priya Ferguson from Stranger Things, and Kelly Rowland hits Netflix October 14th. Joker 2 officially coming out October 4th, 2024. New Hulu... yeah. New Hulu series Tell Me Lies debuts September 7th. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem from Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg hits theaters August 4th, 2023. Deaths this last week. Hall of Fame basketball player Bill Russell from the Boston Celtics passed away at 88. Nichelle Nichols from Star Trek, dead at 89. Pat Carroll, comedian, dead at 95. John Steiner, British actor, dead at 81. Vince Scully, legendary sports announcer, dead at 94. And character actor Clu Gulager, dead at 93. Also, Anne Heche was in a really bad car accident where she was very badly burned. So hopefully she makes a full recovery. Apparently it's going to be a very long recovery. But yeah, so that's the show for the week, everybody. Wayne, you got any final thoughts about Predator or Prey or anything?
Go see it. Take an hour, 2 hours out of your day and go watch Prey.
Yes.
Like me, and it's going to inspire you to go back and revisit all the other Predator movies.
I agree with Wayne. Just go and watch this movie. It's well worth your time. All right, everybody, that's the show for this week. So thank you for listening to another episode of Now Showing with Mike and Wayne.
Reagan, the actor?
Hasta la vista, baby.
Hey, everybody, we're all gonna get laid.